Hello, welcome to another Search with Sean, and this is again part of the Chat with Sean series. Really excited about the guest today, but we'll crack on with just some admin stuff, then the intro, and then we get into some great topics. So just in terms of latest stuff going on, so I had Julia Panozzo on last week, and we talked around some really good stuff about applied neuroscience principles to customer acquisition and marketing strategies, fascinating topic. And we also had recently Christian Ward, and was exploring the role of data in business, and it's all about structured data and data partnerships. So again, fascinating. I really suggest you go and watch both of them, and I'll put some links up somewhere to pop up. And also I'll be recording in the next day or two latest episode of Quickfire SEO and AI news, and there's tons going on. I've just had to keep on updating it, so it's been quite longer than I thought, but even overnight stuff has happened, so I've had to add stuff in. So that would be really interesting, the stories in that. And finally, as you may have been watching or follow me on LinkedIn, we're doing a whole digital marketing online event that'll be streamed on YouTube and LinkedIn. It's got really great speakers talking on all sorts of subjects on digital marketing, and that I've put the first two dates. There might be more, but the first two dates are the 17th and the 20th of December. So if you follow me on LinkedIn, you'll be able to watch it on the stream there, or you can watch it via YouTube on the Search with Sean channel. So that's that out of the way. And now we've got the guest, and it's my first ever returnee, and I'm really excited about it. So I'll get into an intro, but you probably saw him already in the intro video, but let's give some more context around it. So James Brockbank, the founder and managing director of Digitaloft. Hope I did that right. You can correct me, James. I haven't been practicing that. And then James is a highly respected figure in our industry, having shared his expertise at renowned events such as SMX, BrightonSEO, Pubcon, WordCamp, and the State of Search. And his insights have been featured in leading publications, including Search Engine Journal, Search Engine Land, and Semrush. So you've probably seen his name somewhere. He's done great talks. And yeah, if you want to, thanks for returning, firstly. If you want to correct me on that name.
Hi again. Hi again, and thank you for having me back. Really enjoyed the first time round, and I think we ran out of time, didn't we? I ran out of time, so we said let's come back. So no, thank you for having me back.
Nice, pleasure. And and we'll get into what you've been doing recently, because you've done some great stuff. I know there's a lot of stuff in the background.
Too much. I'm ready for the end of the year.
I bet. So yeah, in terms of, I've kind of thrown this in, and feel free to pass, but stuff has happened overnight. I know Leaders to Lease kind of posted around it. So what do you think about the current situation at Google, and what do you think the outcome will be? Obviously, if you didn't know, but the news is that the Department of Justice are trying to push for them to sell certain assets. So
yeah. I was going to say which part of the last 24 hours news, and it's hard, isn't it? Because I think it's something needs to happen, but I don't know. It's a hard one. I think it's Google obviously has a monopoly, and Google has a responsibility. But I think on the flip of it is, do we expect too much from Google? And I think I'm not saying in a legal sense. I mean, and obviously a lot of this has it's been going on a few years now, and I think if we look at we could have a very, very different conversation whether this is based around organic, around paid, around Chrome, and Google has evolved so much in the last 10, 20 years, and I think when we get to that sort of core of it, of should Chrome be, I guess that that ultimate question is, should Chrome be sold off? And I think personally, I dare say it feels a bit of a cop. It's the easy option. But we obviously have the revelation from a couple of months back that Google is using Chrome data as part of its ranking algorithm. It could get interesting. I mean, look, I don't really want to get into the politics of it all, because I think we could go round and round in circles, and you can argue it both ways. But I think if Chrome is sold off, will that continue to feed user signals into the algorithm? Who knows? It depends who it's sold off to. But I can't see it happening overnight. I can't, I think we're looking in the future, and I think, do Google have lots of other, do SEOs have lots of other problems to be worrying about right now? Oh yes, there are. Are there things? I guess as an SEO, as an agency owner, it's something I'm keeping an eye on. Is it something I'm obsessed over? No. Do I have probably feelings as strong as some people are sharing? No. But I think it'll be interesting to play out.
Yeah,
I guess a lot of that is, my sort of personal mindset that there is nothing I can do personally to influence how that pans out either way. Are there more important things for me to be focusing on myself, my clients right now? Absolutely. And I actually thought you were going to talk about site reputation abuse. That's what I thought you were going to start talking about.
Well, we can.
I've got a very different opinion on that. And obviously the sort of revelation that, the Google sort of summary of it was obviously changed yesterday. And look, I think comes back to the same as the helpful content update. Should site reputation abuse ever been allowed to happen in the first place? No. Are SEOs especially going to double down on something that works until it doesn't? 100%. And I think it's a little bit harsh sometimes when SEOs are often directing their anger at the situation on the businesses that took advantage of it. Forbes Advisor made, at least to my knowledge, hundreds of layoffs last week. That is hundreds of people who have lost a job just before Christmas. Whether or not Forbes and Forbes Advisor and the companies behind that exploited what's really a loophole, is that the fault of the people who were employed? No. And I think, we could say the same thing about, how Google Penguin brought so many businesses crashing down in 2012. I know so many businesses that were ruined. I was probably three years in SEO at that time, and I will never forget the hundreds of hours I spent on link removal projects for often big brands who had their traffic decimated because they'd been buying links, they'd been manipulative link building for years because it worked. And I think, you can say these things should have never worked. I agree. But I think when you are certainly in an economy like we are today, there are sometimes decisions made on knowing you're not doing the right thing, but they're made for sometimes the wrong reason, sometimes for the right reason. But I think when accusations are passed around about often the SEOs or the individuals, I really struggle to get on board. And and same with the helpful content update, all these, a lot of niche site owners now they're being pretty vile to SEOs right now. And I am sat on the side of the fence of SEOs here, but I think is it the fault of SEOs that the helpful content update happened? I don't believe it is. And I think, the whole narrative of, I'm guessing you read the narrative that's been going on over the past week or two. It's that there are SEOs who sold audits to niche site owners who were hit. And, the whole conversation and attacks have been partly off the back of they shouldn't have sold those audits. Now, my honest take here is that I don't believe at least any of the reputable SEOs who were helping. And, if we look at some of the people who, Marie Haynes has been torn apart this week, which I think is deeply, deeply unfair. I think Marie has only ever done right for this industry and has given away so much of her knowledge, so much of her insights for free to the community. And Marie has built a business on knowing Google's algorithm updates, patents inside out. So naturally, by the reputation she's built, I think a lot of niche site owners gravitated towards people like Marie to say, can you help me recover? Now, when the sort of biggest impact happened in September 2023, I honestly don't believe any of the reputable SEOs who were working with niche sites at that point believed you could not recover, or that we would get 14, 15 months in and only a handful of sites would have partly recovered and the odd site had seen a full recovery. And I think this is what's taken out of context. You know, you look at history, you look at the Penguin update, the Panda update, various other core algorithm updates, and you understand what the algorithm or the manual actions in the case of things like not Penguin, but Penguin obviously launched at the same time as manual link penalties. So you've got the whole algorithmic and manual penalty. You know, those of us who've been in SEO for quite some time, we are of this, or certainly when an update first hits, that if you do enough of the right things, you can recover from pretty much anything. So did any of these people go into working with niche site owners? They didn't steal money from them. They didn't take advantage of them. I honestly believe they genuinely believed they could help. And I think they have worked with sites to make their sites many, many times better, yet those sites have still not recovered. That is a Google issue. This hate should be being directed at Google, not the SEOs. You know, you look at Lily Ray. Lily has spent hours and hours and hours. I wouldn't be surprised getting into the certainly mid to high hundreds of hours helping site owners who were hit publicly on social, at conferences. So these accusations that it's done to exploit people who were hit, I think I struggle to get on board with it. And I think, the same thing comes with, we can have these same conversations about these things. Are the SEOs, is the SEO industry to blame? No. Has Google got its own agenda? Yes. And I think, you look at the Creator Summit that Google hosted and some of the things coming out there. Google has obviously gone and told the sites who attended, it is not your content that was the problem. And I get that. That's good to hear, but it doesn't help anybody. And I think, so I think the comment that was made by, I think Marie Haynes made a comment last week on the ad density on one of these sites that someone got upset about, which triggered all this off. Honestly, that comment could have been made about many of the regional publications in the UK. I get a day, I'm a Blackburn Rovers fan. I get the Blackburn Rovers from daily update from the Lancashire Evening Telegraph. When I am out walking my dog in the morning, without fail, I will open up that email and see what's going on. I will read the news. Those regional sites they are almost unusable. Now, had that comment been made about the ad density of a major media publication, The Sun, The Mirror, all of these top-tier publications, the ad density is horrific. I honestly believe, had that comment been made about one of them publications, and the ad density of a lot of online publishers is horrific and the usability is horrendous. Yes, it was made at a site that was hit. I don't believe it was made in the context of the reason you were hit is because of your ad density. But look, Google is an algorithm. Google's algorithms work on signals. And I think, have you got various signals at play between authority and reputation, which is why I think a lot of these publications get away with it. Branded search. You go and take the Mirror, the Lancashire Evening Post, the Lancashire Telegraph. People are searching branded. I don't want to get into what the helpful content update was, because I think, it's been talked about to death. And I think, the honest answer is none of us fully know. But I think there are, as an SEO, there are things that you instinctively gravitate towards. And I explained this. I had a call with someone yesterday and we were talking about this. And the sort of mindset I gave was, as an SEO, if we were working with a client and they had a blog that was absolutely filled with ads, our recommendation, if they saw let's assume they've seen a negative a negative trend in an algorithm update. Let's say they were negatively hitting an algorithm update. I can almost guarantee one of the tests I would propose is your ad density is way too high. The user experience is suffering. So if I would make that recommendation for, say, an e-commerce store's blog, and you go on the Argos website and Argos is monetizing with ads. Now, they only have a few in the footer and a few in the sidebar. But at what point will we start to see e-commerce sites, larger sites who have tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of sessions to their blog going, hang on, I could monetize this with ads? There will be people who are thinking it or trying it. And I honestly believe right now is that they would have not seen the same impact. An e-commerce blog, which was littered with ads, would not see the same impact as niche sites did.
Yeah, BBC Good Food have ads as well, which I've seen.
Perfect. And that's a difficult one, isn't it? Because they are sort of their physical magazine turned publisher. And, you go back 10 years and BBC Good Food was a print magazine. So, yeah, but it's exactly the same point. And I think, the natural recommendation as an SEO in 2024, if a client saw a negative impact from an algorithm update and they had a mass, an unusable ad density, would be to at least consider whether that is a contributing factor. So, I don't believe any SEOs are slamming niche sites. I think that most SEOs have a lot of empathy to the situation and what's gone on. I think more SEOs than will admit it had niche sites themselves that made quite a lot of money that now don't. So I certainly don't think there's this, the narrative that is being painted is that SEOs are evil and SEOs are exploiting small sites, niche site owners. I don't believe that's the case. Yes, you will have some bad players, but we've had bad players in SEO for 15 years or more. So yeah, I actually thought when you said the last 24 hours, I thought you were going to talk about site reputation abuse. And
yeah, it is in there as well. Like I said, so much has happened, but
yes,
and it's sad to hear about Marie because, like you say, she's such a great contributor. And in terms of niche sites, niche pursuits, the podcast is really good. If you should follow that on YouTube, they cover stuff around niche sites and stuff.
I think, but I think it's I understand the hatred and anger that these niche site owners have. Their traffic, 90, 95, 99% of their traffic from Google was taken away overnight. Well, not overnight, but on a sliding period of anything from a couple of weeks to 6, 9, 12 months. And it was loss after loss after loss. I get it. I get it as much as I can. I understand why they are angry.
No, 100%.
But the hatred is being directed at the wrong people. And I think, when I say, I think, Google, there are wider things that SEOs, there are higher priorities right now than whether Chrome is going to be sold off. And I think it's understanding how we work within a rapidly changing SERP landscape where a lot of the fundamentals of SEO have changed. A lot of the fundamentals of SEO in terms of, as I say, penalties, algorithm updates, we are seeing things that we haven't seen before and we have to navigate them. I would much prefer to spend my time on learning, on innovation, on investigation, on how we drive growth in the current SERP landscape. And that doesn't mean to say if we catch up in 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, that I won't have a very different opinion on Chrome being sold off. But right now, there's bigger fish to fry.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. I've got to keep up to date with it in terms of like the news and stuff. But
and I think we all have to know. We all have a responsibility to know what's going on, but it's we all only have finite hours in a day, and it's look, that's where strategic thinking comes in place, isn't it? Knowing where to focus your efforts and know what to put to the back of your mind for a little while.
Yeah, no, 100%. I'm going to jump a bit ahead because I want to get your take on something. So we're talking about, obviously, you've been doing a lot of talks around this about relevancy and stuff. So what makes a great backlink? Because I think it's changed a lot, hasn't it, recently in terms of
and we can come at this from a few different angles, but I think when we talk about link relevance is, in my opinion, the most impactful lever that as SEOs, digital PRs, link builders, we can pull right now. And I think, should it have been the case for a long time? Yes. But again, this is, I talk a lot about how Google's algorithm is evolving. And we also see, we also hear a lot that links aren't as effective as they once were. Links don't have the same impact. I partly disagree with that. I partly agree. I think, if we step back, look, I've been doing SEO 15 years this year. If we step back to 2009, it was a volume game. It was the more links you had with exact match anchor text, the higher you would rank. I can tell many, many stories about having sites, working with clients where we had them ranking position 1 in the UK for payday loans at the height of payday loans, for make money online, casino terms. We were literally blasting hundreds into the thousands of what we would now class as link farm links at those sites. It worked. And, I talk quite a lot about my journey sort of out of working in other agencies into building my own. And those sort of tactics are the reason why I founded my own agency. I founded my own agency because I joined the SEO industry in 2009. My sort of first education in SEO was, this is how we do things. We buy links from overseas. We bring in links from Indian link sellers. The agency that I started my career out at were placing orders of tens of thousands of pounds a month for tens of thousands of links from an Indian link broker. Now, my first education into SEO is, this is what we do. I sort of, over the next couple of years, sort of started to really struggle with associating that with that. I did a marketing degree at uni. I didn't necessarily come into SEO via SEO or digital. And it only took me a couple of years to realize that SEO was always the joke in the boardroom. It was always that manipulative tactic. It was always that tactic where you're spamming your top to the way of Google. But it worked until it didn't. And I think, which is why I talk a lot about the things we're seeing now. The helpful content update, especially the site reputation abuse, they remind me so much of how the industry reacted in 2012 following Penguin. Almost overnight, the industry was almost like, oh my goodness, has Google really just killed all our sites? And we've got to learn from the past, and I think was it too good to be true that between 2021 and 2023, many sites could use AI as an example or mass-produced content to scale to millions of sessions a month, earning $50,000, $100,000 a month off the back of that? If something's too good to be true, it probably is. And, I am certainly not talking about the ethics behind rapid growth. We saw the SEO heist talked about a lot last, I don't know whether it was last year or earlier this year, where a lad sort of published his case study of growing a business site, not a niche site, to a market leader in terms of traffic with AI content. And as someone who's been doing SEO 15 years now, I always have in the back of my mind, is this too good to be true? Ranking a site using completely irrelevant links that you have obtained on nothing websites that you've paid $20 for from an Indian link broker. It was absolutely too good to be true. It should not be easy to rank at the top of Google. You have to earn the right to rank at Google. You should not be able to spam or manipulate your way there. So I look back at some of these updates and I go, talking from experience, we should always be saying, if it is suddenly easy to rank through whatever tactic, whether that's publishing 1,000 pages of content to build topical authority or whatever the latest trend is, to create a subfolder of a site on Forbes, and it will catch up with us eventually. That doesn't mean to say you're ethically wrong in, I almost want to say exploiting the loophole, but I honestly think a lot of people who do it don't realize it's a loophole because they're suddenly sold courses on this. And I think, so you get to the topic of links, and look, I've seen it before where suddenly the tactics we were using stopped working. In 2012, you would either be hit by Penguin or you would get a manual penalty for these links. Now Google just ignores those links, and it makes it harder than ever to know what's working and what's not working. If you went and bought, if you were using tactics that Google no longer rewarded in 2012, you would know about it by a significant dip in traffic. You would get a penalty, which is where I think a lot of old, SEOs old school SEOs who've been doing it since those days, we remember it was a penalty. You had been either manually hit, which it was in a lot of cases, or you would be hit algorithmically. You could recover. If it was Penguin, you would submit a disavow file, get some links removed. If it was a manual penalty, you usually had to work harder to get those links removed. But the fact remains that you could, if you did the right things and cleaned up your mess, you could recover. Now Google is ignoring those links. They are effectively, in many cases, either not having an impact at all, or from a certain point, they will stop having an impact. It makes it a lot harder to go, what is and isn't working. So if you then start to dive into things like the algorithm leak that came out in May, various patents, we come onto the topic of relevance. And if we then look, if we understand that Google is an algorithm, now, whether Google is an algorithm like many of us know it has been for a long time, or whether this is now an AI beast that they cannot tame, it is up for debate. And look, I don't claim to be an expert on AI in terms of the AI models they've used, and which is why I'm gonna refrain from talking about that, because it's not something I know enough about it to use in the day-to-day, and I know how Google's algorithms could go. I have not spent time theorizing on enough AI knowledge to go, how could, again, it's not in my, I have no reason to go and hypothesize on why Google may have lost control of the algorithm. I think it's a very, very real possibility that they have done. And I think they've almost admitted it in various, the Creator Summit gave that impression. But the biggest piece of advice I have for any SEO is to spend time understanding how the algorithm works. And I say that in a loose sense, in that Google's patents are publicly accessible. We can go, and just because Google's issued a patent on something, it does not mean they are actively using it in the algorithm. But what we can take from that is an understanding on either what Google is trying to do, what they are testing, or how they think about things. When you do that, it is there in black and white that link relevance is so incredibly important. This came out of the API leak on what was called the anchor mismatch demotion. Now, on the face of it, what does that mean? You start to process this whole API leak, and anchors, they are not anchor text. The first thing that came out is anchors. No, anchors are links. In the context of the API and the systems and the documentation, anchors are links. Anchor mismatch demotion. Demotion is effectively ignoring, negatively affecting. Okay, anchor mismatch. What is the anchor mismatch? When you start to piece together the puzzle, I am incredibly confident that that is a relevance mismatch. When the page that is linking does not match the topics that the site in question, the site being linked to, is about, then Google will ignore the link. So we then have to take these things as link builders, as digital PRs, and go, link relevance is the most important thing that we have control over. And I say control over in the sense of proactive link building. Yes, you will sometimes earn irrelevant links, scraper sites. Google's ignoring them links anyway. It doesn't matter. They're not things that we're proactively going and focusing our efforts on. Most links that we naturally earn because a journalist, a blogger, another site, a resource is citing, they are relevant links. They are citing you for a reason. Most irrelevant links that are proactive are, again, I don't believe anyone or most people are going out and purposely going, we're going to take your investment and earn links that aren't relevant. It's this misunderstanding of what relevance really means. And if Google is ignoring your links, it is a waste of resources. It is a waste of budget. So we look at it and go, okay, how is Google figuring out relevance? And again, we don't know these things 100%, but you've probably seen over the past couple of months, Google has been speaking more and more and more about things like vector embeddings, about cosine similarity. The technologies are out there. They have been out there for quite some time. And if you go back to early 2000s, we started to see patents on topical PageRank. These are not new concepts. And, I think the fact that a lot of not the SEO industry especially, but the digital PR industry especially, is only just cottoning on to what relevance really means. It's been there for years. But I think where we got to in 2016, 17, 18, is that whereas a lot of SEOs, maybe just before, a lot of SEOs were still building links or earning links with guest posting, which was not really relevant. The impact that authoritative press links had, even when they weren't completely relevant, was outweighing the guest posts. They were more powerful links. And I think what we've seen over time is that, look, Google makes hundreds of updates and changes to their algorithm every year. Over time, that dial, as it were, on the importance of link relevance, as more and more sites have utilized PR to build links, have stopped with a lot of the old school, straight up spammy manipulative tactics, the dials have been changed on authority versus relevance. And I think where we are now is relevance is the most important lever we can pull. And, an understanding of, and I think, it often gets me that, SEOs by the simple nature, we're often investigative, we're inquisitive. Go and read as many Google patents as you can that are relevant to what you do. If you are working in link acquisition, go and study a lot of the patents that are related to understand how PageRank worked, understand how topical PageRank worked, understand how these things evolved over many, many years. Are they complex? Are they based on computer science? Yes. One of the best things you can now do is go and pop these patents into ChatGPT and ask it to explain it to you in simpler terms. I'm certainly not saying every SEO needs to go and understand detailed computer science, but having an understanding of how Google's algorithms have worked in the past, the foundations and where they've evolved from, lets us start to sort of build mental models of the importance of things like relevance. So the question then comes on, why would you allocate resources to earning links that Google is probably ignoring? And I actually don't believe that Google, I don't believe it's binary. I don't believe it is as simple as link is valid, link is not valid, link is ignored. As with everything, there will be more complexities to that. And ultimately, you are looking at a relevance match between the topics that a site is relevant to. How can that be calculated? By taking all of a site's content, processing the topics that is relevant to with various, with one of many natural language understanding models, with vector embeddings. It is not difficult to understand the topics a site is about and cross-reference that with a link profile. Yes, I am I'm taking a simplistic viewpoint on this and as the explanation. Yes, it is in reality more complex than that. But at basic level, you want the links you are earning to align with the topics of the content you're publishing. If there is a mismatch, then your link efforts are probably not, take that out to marketing though, and I think, we spin this out to a concept of traditional PR or offline marketing. Why would you promote your business for something that you're not relevant to? If you were selling, I don't know, let's take an extreme look at this. If you were selling women's clothing, why would you go and put out an advert that starts advertising men's leather jackets? We could go more extreme. If you are selling dog food, why would you go and put out an advert about cats? You would not do it. Yet SEOs for so long have gone, oh yeah, well, it's tangentially relevant. We can argue, if we try hard enough, we can find some sort of relevance. Forget SEO, forget digital PR, apply some common sense and marketing initiative and go, why would you promote yourself for something that you don't do? That is relevance in a T. What do you want to be famous for? And I think, SEOs, myself in the past as well, I'm certainly not saying I've never done this. We think too much in the context of SEO rather than business marketing. Step outside of the SEO bubble and some of the things that digital PRs especially, I am certainly not excluding myself from this. Some of the things that as digital PRs and link builders we have done over the past 10 years, looking back, are quite frankly embarrassing. They were done for nothing but SEO and links. And the sooner SEOs and digital PRs, and everyone's on their own professional journey, the sooner we can get out of that mindset, the better. Because what we are then doing is promoting a business for the things it does. And I think that is relevance in a nutshell.
Yeah, no, great points. And on that, there's also Notebook LLM that's great at chucking in documents, asking questions. Actually, I love it because you get the two people discussing it in a conversation. It's fascinating.
Well, I think Matt, I think I saw the other day that Mark from Panda has started a podcast, which is analyzing Google patents with Notebook LM. So I'm very excited to listen to that. Yeah, but it's another great example. There are tools out there that can simplify complex topics, and you don't need to understand every line in a patent you need to understand what it's trying to achieve. And the question that often comes is, well, is Google actually using that patent? I honestly don't think it's relevant. If Google has published that patent and invested resource, it at least aligns with what they're trying to do or their bigger vision.
It's an intent, isn't it? So that's
We don't need to understand. We don't need to know whether they are actively using it. And the more you can argue relevance of links without using SEO terminology, the better, because it is easier to understand. And actually, the best way we can define link building, PR, EAT right now, it is all about a business's reputation. We need to stop as an industry thinking about link building being about links, about PR being about coverage. It is all stacking up to build a business's reputation. And honestly, right now, I believe as we move into 2025, what I call internally, and the team are sick of me saying this, the new fundamentals of SEO, and that is not the new foundations of SEO. This is built on foundations. So the foundations of, this is assuming that as we go into 2025, everyone has a technically sound site. Everyone has a site that can be crawled, indexed, and understood by Google. They are the prerequisites of being eligible to rank in Google. In my eyes, the new fundamentals of SEO success are intent, information gain, user experience, and reputation. They are the things that as SEOs over the next 12 to 24 months, we need to learn to, in many ways, obsess over. Are we matching the intent that Google understands based on what someone is searching for? information gain? Are we adding new value, or are we just regurgitating what everyone else has said? Why should Google rank our piece of content as opposed to what's already out there? User experience. Do people engage with this site in a way that suggests they like this content, that it meets their needs? And reputation. When we align with those things, we're starting to get more and more out of the old school way of thinking about SEO. Title tags, H1 tags, yes, they all feed into these fundamentals. But when we start to think about SEO in that way, we have a bigger picture view on how do you gain a competitive advantage in SEO right now. And I honestly believe that's where most SEO should be focusing their efforts. They should be going not just how do we do what everyone else has done. We, as an SEO industry, we have been so guilty for so long at reverse engineering what's already out there and doing what they do.
And I think it's also selling ourselves short as well. You know, like
that's
why sometimes when businesses are looking to get rid of people, SEO sometimes is the first they look at. If we're selling ourselves short, we can add
PR is even worse than SEO for that. Digital PR, because if you are, let's say you're a CMO for a brand, and you are, because of the economy, you are forced to reduce your marketing budget by 10%, let's say, for 2025. If you look at the line items that you are spending and you see digital PR, £10,000 a month, you then go and talk to the team who's procured that and go, what is the output we get? Oh, we get 20 links a month for that. To a CMO, that means nothing at all. Position that instead as this is an essential part that contributes to us growing on average by £1 million, $1 million in revenue over the next 12 months. As SEOs, we are so guilty of sitting, and I've said it about 3 times now, staying in our SEO silo and assuming everyone else understands what we're talking about and why it's important. If we are able to talk in the language of a business, and you can justify digital PR links in the way that contributes to a business achieving its goals, and showcase that if you take that away, those top line goals and forecasts will either not be achieved or they will have to reduce.
100%.
Sell it as that, not even sell it. Get the buy-in of that being a step in the journey to this growth goal, as opposed to 20 links a month. It is the same thing, but we are talking about it in business language, not SEO terms. A CMO, and you might find the odd exception, but I will happily debate with anybody. A CMO does not care that they get 20 links a month. They care that they get a step on the journey to XYZ revenue goal. The same thing positioned in a different way. And this is where as an industry we need to do better.
Yeah, I think, and I've probably been guilty of it in the past as well. Yeah. So it's a learning curve for everyone. And just on a bit of a curveball, but related. But and we're going to your tool, which sounds really awesome. Say you are paying an agency for backlink services or whatever. How do you quantify that? How do you ensure that they're actually doing what they're saying they're doing? Like, how do you show good results? Like, because there's so much that influence those.
Of course there is, and I think it starts with a strategy. And I think I often say that when you have a clearly defined strategy and a clearly defined goal, and you are able to work backwards from that goal to identify the tactics you need to leverage to achieve that goal, which effectively it's the what, why, and the how of strategy and tactics combined. Now, I think this question falls into 2 very distinct buckets here. You either have and if we look at the buyers of digital PR services as an example, we can swap out digital PR for link building, whatever we want to call it. The buyers of those services are usually either businesses, business owners, and general marketers in one side, or they are SEOs in the other side. Let's tackle SEOs first, because that's the easy one. In a lot of cases, if an in-house SEO manager has developed a strategy and they have identified that relevant authoritative links are an important part of delivering that strategy, then they're already bought into that links are a piece of the puzzle. And a lot of the time that is aligning with competitor insights, market analysis, SERP analysis, to go with experience to go, what type of links do we actually need to be building to showcase a positive impact? It is rolling up into a wider SEO strategy, usually knowing that all of the different pieces of the puzzle are being executed. That's usually the easy one, because it is often more the in-house SEO manager, the buyer of the service, they have already justified, they know why they need links as part of their strategy. In that instance, you are probably less responsible for the overall strategy, but delivering against that tactical goal, which might be to close a link gap, a relevance gap, an authority gap. On the flip of that, you have the other grouping, which encompasses business owners, it encompasses general marketers, often those who don't understand SEO inside out. This is where it gets a bit trickier, because often there will not be a coherent SEO strategy that is owned by one person. In many cases, with in that first group we talked about, that is the in-house SEO team. They've developed the strategy. They are bringing in and managing the different tactics to drive towards an end goal. If you bring in a digital PR agency, you buy digital PR services, you build links, we can apply the same concept here. Who is responsible for that strategy? What are they trying to achieve? Links are not, and I've said this many times, links are not a magic wand. Links on their own will not drive growth when working blind. You have to collaborate as part of a wider strategy. Now, is that the responsibility of the digital PR agency? Is there a tech SEO agency involved? Is there a content agency involved? Are there freelancers involved? There are so many different scenarios here, but it comes back to the fact that SEO success comes from having a strategy in place, which is the wrapper around tactics, rather than throwing a load of different tactics at the wall and hoping something sticks. But as SEOs, as digital PRs, we have to get better at that. We have to get better at asking those questions. What is your SEO strategy? How does what we're doing on digital PR roll up into your wider strategy? If that response is, well, we don't really have an SEO strategy, we've just been told that digital PR will help us rank higher, then there are these moral conversations and going, okay, well, actually, to see the maximum success and impact here, this really needs to be done as part of a strategy. Now, I am, of course, talking about digital PR and links in the context of SEO. There are many other reasons why you may do digital PR, just to make that clear. But in the context of SEO, nobody wants links. And that's a bold statement. Nobody wants the actual links. They want the impact that comes from those links. And I think this is something that is so important to understand. Links are a means to an end. They are a route to an outcome. It is the outcome that everybody wants. It is the increased rankings, the increased traffic, the increased revenue. It's not the links themselves. And I think that's a mindset that everyone, from someone in their first day in SEO to those of us who have been doing it 15, 20 years plus, need to be aligned with. Nobody wants the link. They want the impact and the outcomes that the link delivers. And that in itself should open up the right conversations to go, how do we show impact? How do we measure success? I appreciate I've maybe not directly answered your question, but it's because every business will be different. Every business will be different, but getting aligned to the fact that link building is not a magic wand. When done as part of a wider strategy and knowing what piece that plays, it is still very, very powerful. When it is done blind, then at what point are you just stuck in that old school mindset of links work? For links to work, you need to have content that's worth ranking. You need to have a site that is technically this. We could go round and round in circles on so many different things here, but I think that the bottom line there is that link building, digital, they are tactics. Yes, you can have a digital PR strategy, but again, that will usually ladder up into an SEO strategy. It will ladder up into maybe a brand strategy. There are different routes it can take, but having a coherent strategy is that's the answer to the question, really. Once you know what you're trying to achieve or what your desired outcome is, you can then measure against that, and that's when you can demonstrate success.
That makes perfect sense to me, to be fair, and then make it a lot easier, like you say, to track it. And it kind of on that theme, obviously your tool Relevance, you want to introduce people to that and what it can do.
Yeah, so we said about 12 to 18 months ago, we set about answering a question that we were frequently getting from clients and that we frequently had ourselves as between our SEO and our digital PR team, which was proving that a link is relevant. And it's that question on how do you move analyzing and understanding link relevance outside of a subjective opinion? Most discussions about link relevance are subjective. On one side, we have seen instances where an in-house team, a business, will reject links that an agency has earned on the grounds that that's not relevant because there is something like a link guarantee in place and they are using it as a way to get more for their money. They're rejecting it knowing it's not going to be removed. They're going, oh, that's not relevant. I don't, That's the extreme circumstance. We've only ever seen it a couple of times, but I've spoken to many, many others who have been in that situation where, we went through this phase in the industry of guarantees on link numbers alone without any conversation on what does a great link look like. And I think it was easy to abuse. It was easy for some businesses, a small number, as with everything, you have bad players in the agency world, you have bad players in the brand world, you step out of it and you only look at, some of the conversations that have been had in the last few years around creative agencies where a brand has gone out to tender, someone, an agency has done a pitch, and next thing you know, the brand has declined that pitch and they've gone and stolen the ideas. There are bad players in everything. And you then look at that and you then, on the flip of it, had some agencies and some PRs going, they would argue that a link is relevant, that damn well they are only arguing that it's relevant to be able to count it towards a KPI. So you have this meet in the middle on, you could be in a situation where there was almost stalemate, where both parties are arguing, one is arguing a link is relevant, one is arguing a link is not. Who is right, who is wrong? Now, you start to apply an understanding of machine learning, of natural language processing, and Google's algorithms. And it doesn't take you long to get to the conclusion that I talked about before. I'm not going to go over it too much, where effectively a relevant link is where the topics that the content that links is relevant to match. There is a relevance match with the site being linked to. Now, that's on a very simplistic form, but we went and developed a tool that effectively looks at and extracts the topics a site is relevant to, the topics a link profile is relevant to, as well as every individual link, and is able to map a relevance gap. It is able to map the topics where there is maybe either overrepresentation on a link profile, underrepresentation on a link profile, and start to feed in insights on, firstly, what topics that a site is, imagine, a site through its content is saying to Google, hey, we're relevant to these things, we should rank for these topics. If we adopt that simplistic mindset that links are almost votes of confidence, but that Google is taking relevant links as votes of confidence, those links are effectively helping that content to rank higher. There needs to be a match. Those links that we're earning have to match the topics that we're trying to rank for. There are at least one agency and tools that have tried to do this before, which we were inspired by. Those tools, in our opinion, only took half of the challenge. They looked at the relevance of a link profile itself without cross-referencing it with the site. Looking at a link profile in isolation is only half the work. You then need to go, how does this stack up against the site we're trying to rank? That then means you can look at every link that is earned, every link in a link profile, and go, which links are relevant and which links aren't. You are not doing that subjectively. You're doing that based on NLP and NLU data to effectively topic match. And another, I talked before briefly about things like vector embedding and cosine similarity. There are different ways you could do this. We're using one of the natural language understanding libraries and models to do this. But again, they adopt the same principles. So we're effectively, and yes, it is a tool. Are we going to be releasing this as a self-serve tool? No, we are not. There is no intention to do that. We have been asked many a time, when can I get access to it? The honest answer is no, we will not be releasing it. At least there is no plans right now to release that. What we are offering, so we've been using this now for 6 months with our client base to steer strategies, to layer insights into both strategy and reporting. We are now offering relevance reports as a standalone done-for-you service. We have started offering these in the past 6 to 8 weeks to a number of brands who are effectively coming to us, and it's a strategy piece. They are coming to us and going, we want to understand opportunities, gaps in our link profile from a relevant perspective. We want to understand where, which links are and aren't relevant and what our focus should be. We are now offering that as a done-for-you service. There are no plans to launch this as a tool. Why? Because we believe we're onto something good. It took us 18 months of trial and error in many ways to get this right, to get this to a place where it aligns with the search success we're seeing. We are now taking client, and some of the early tests were clients that clients we've been working with a long time, that we had that gut feeling have that relevant link profile. One of the things we are also including in these reports is we are not just looking at a site in isolation. We are looking at the competitive landscape. What is the makeup of a competitor's link profile? Which links are and aren't relevant? What topics are they maybe more relevant than we are on? How does that align with search visibility? The correlation is there. The trends are there to see that when we are able to take a client who we've been working with for 3, 4, 5 years, that we always knew their link profile was relevant. We are now able to bring data into that to go, your link profile is more relevant than your competitors. Every single time we run this, they are the brand that performs best on the SERPs. They are the brand with the biggest visibility. So it took us, I say 18 months of trial and error. It took us 12 months of trial and error and development time. I had been looking at how we developed this solution for at least a year, if not 2 years prior to that. It's something that I've always gone, how can we do that? Seriously, it took us 6 months of planning to get to a point where we went, okay, we're going to hire a data and development team in-house to sit with our SEOs, sit with our PRs to build this from the ground up. And there are many times in that we went, we need to start again. We went through a long process to get it right. And it was a period of learning, but it was a period of getting it right. Honestly, quite selfishly, whilst I am an SEO and I would like to think I'm very generous with my time at conferences, on social, creating content, we believe we have solved SEO and digital PR's issue on how do you measure relevance. Right now, we are keeping that to ourselves.
Yeah, you have been generous. I mean, you're generous to me, so I can vouch for that. And you know, if you are interested at all, then obviously the links will be in the description that you can contact James and the team there to see more about it. And just conscious of time, and if you're still cool to hang on for a few more points, then that'd be awesome. So obviously, topic I'm really interested in, I know you're very keen on it, is EEAT, and you know, why is it? I mean, I know a lot of people talked about it in the last year or so, but why is it important, and how should people be approaching it, especially after everything we've discussed so far?
EEAT, and again, to step back 10 minutes, EEAT rolls up, and I think, you know, EEAT rolls up into reputation. Even a lot of SEOs. I mean, SEO, you know, sorry, EEAT as a concept has now been. It first came into the quality rating guidelines years ago. You know, it is not a new concept, but it's really only the last 2 to 3 years that SEOs have really started taking it seriously. I fell into that category, you know, and I think it comes into that thing of there are so many things in SEO you could focus your efforts on. And I think it comes back to where we started today on often you need to know where to best focus finite amounts of time you have. I think where we are right now is that a lot of businesses, especially marketers, general marketers, some SEOs, struggle to understand EEAT, not in terms of what it is, but why it can't be measured. There is no such thing as an EEAT score. And I think a lot of people struggle with that. You go to a CMO, a CEO, and say, you need to do, you know, you need to get your product team to be involved in the content creation process. You are asking for money there. You are asking for an allocation of resources. You go into a company and say, right, okay, we want an hour a month, 2 hours a month, an hour a week of a product expert's time to contribute towards content, at least in terms of ideas, thoughts. You are asking for money. You might not be asking for it as cash, but you are asking for resource allocation. The question then comes, okay, well, how do we measure this? How do we know it's successful? There is no EEAT score. We are still talking in, well, Google's quality rating guidelines say that content should be created by experts. And you then get that pushback on, right, okay, well, but if we don't, if you write it or an agency writes it, if you write it from Google, will it still rank? Maybe. One of a number of signals. Will it still rank tomorrow? Will it still rank next year? I can't answer that. Nobody can answer that. You go in and have that conversation about EEAT in terms of this is your reputation. If someone who doesn't know that topic inside out maps out the content, does not create it with expert insight, you risk your reputation of publishing content that is not factually accurate or in line with current business practices. You have changed the mindset. Reputation is something that any of us can understand. Reputation is one of the biggest things that contribute to someone trusting a business. When you relay it like that, people get it. People get this concept of EEAT aligns with it's part of your reputation. CEOs, CMOs take reputation so incredibly seriously. You are talking in their language. We can talk as SEOs about what EEAT means, but step outside of SEO and it means nothing. They can't understand why it can't be measured, why there is no EEAT score. Relay it into terms as being about your reputation, and all of a sudden it's like the penny drops. People get it.
Yeah, so especially if you can show them actual examples of their reputation being damaged online, that definitely hits home, I found.
I mean, look, you know, you take it into, your world, you take it into health, you take it into healthcare, you take it into those sort of topics, and you are not just talking content that might not rank. If healthcare information is factually incorrect, you are talking risk to people's lives.
Yeah, 100%.
People, CMOs, CEOs, they care about that. They don't care what EEAT is, but they care enough not to go and let someone who doesn't understand cancer treatments to go and create content on it. They get that. Their reputation is at stake. Align SEO with the concepts and topics that people at different levels understand, and you are 10 steps ahead of most SEOs.
Yeah, that's the message getting a lot. Yeah,
we exist too much in our own bubble. We exist, SEOs are guilty of assuming the only other people influenced in decisions in their world is other SEOs. It is not. The more you can learn to communicate, and the problem is, look, SEO as a career, you're often not taught these things. You're taught, you join an agency as a junior SEO, you're told how to optimize title tags, optimize H1 tags. You are not taught how to communicate SEO to the C-suite. They don't need to know it, but there comes a point where if you want to either work with big brands, work in big brands, your job shifts just from tactical execution to learning how to communicate with the C-suite.
Yeah, no, it's a valid point.
It's hard. It is hard. You learn it from experience. You cannot just go and. I mean, what would it take? I mean, come on, you're an SEO as well. What would it take? What would it take us to teach someone to optimize title tags who doesn't get it, who's never done it before? An hour?
Yeah.
2 hours? We could have someone optimizing a title tag in a best practice way in an hour.
Yeah.
It takes years of experience to know how to communicate to the C-suite.
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing it for years, and I still think I really need. It's an area that I'm still working on.
We can all improve. We can all improve, and it's really hard. And I think it is unfortunately something that's come with. Don't get me wrong. I think remote working is fantastic. I think the hybrid model is fantastic. It is sort of absorbing how your managers and people more senior to you communicate with other people is something that almost happened without you realizing it when we were all in an office. It is a lot harder. You have to proactively go and create those opportunities. When I was early in my career, the amount of times I would hear my managers, my CEOs, when I was working in other agencies, on the phone having a conversation, the amount of things I learned from hearing one side of a conversation on how to speak or how not to speak to people is phenomenal. But if I'm sat at home and my manager is sat at home working from home on a call, you don't hear that. So we have to evolve. We have to proactively go, how can we expose people who are earlier on in their career to these situations where they learn how people communicate, learn how they handle. And this isn't a debate about should people be in an office, should people, no, that's not what this is about at all. This is about we have to change our ways of working to make sure people's career progression doesn't suffer because of where they choose to work. It's about adopting the way we've done things in the past to go, how can we expose a junior SEO? And that's not saying they're responsible for it. It's going, how can we expose them to the way we have conversations with clients, with the C-suite for as long as possible?
Yeah, I find as well, proactivity is so important, and getting yourself out there and like you say, adapting. It don't matter if it's CEO or whatever, just a different stakeholder who doesn't really know much about SEO. If you can adapt the message in the language that they speak, not like in actual language, but their language of like technical language, then they get it, and then they're on board. Usually, it's when you start just going in your SEO world, they don't really get it half the time.
And they're not expected to care as part of their job. And I think, this is where I think SEO has changed in the last 10, 15 years, in that there is as much, certainly as you progress in seniority as an SEO, you are moving into a world of being able to communicate with the C-suite. I've seen some brilliant sort of narratives on social in the last few weeks about things like when you go in-house, you spend a lot of your time persuading people the value of SEO, why they should be on board in your projects. Now, it almost goes against that. I think a lot of it, I mean, I've always been agency side. I've always been agency side. And, I don't claim to have a balanced viewpoint on this, but what I have done over the past 10 years is hire multiple senior people into our team who have come from an in-house background to give our clients that balanced experience and to see the viewpoints from both sides. But I think certainly early on in my career, my naive mindset was working in-house would be so incredibly boring. That was my, if I step back 10, 12 years before I started an agency, I'll openly admit that I had that viewpoint. Agency life is so fast-paced, it's so fast-moving, you're working on so many different things. When you start to talk to in-house SEOs, in-house marketers, they're not doing, as a junior or mid-level agency SEO, you are spending 80% of your week doing SEO. When you move in-house, or certainly, obviously it's different for different businesses, but a lot of the time you're arguing the value of SEO. You're getting buy-in from other teams, and it is the side that agencies do not see. And I think, without that, could agency SEOs be there doing SEO all day? It's different parts of the puzzle, and I think it's a very, very different world. And I think, agency SEOs, I think, often have very different skills to in-house SEOs. It doesn't mean one is more superior or better than the other, but they are very, very different. I think agency, certainly those who've progressed their careers up through agencies, they're very, very good at getting things done with limited resources. They are very good at balancing 10 projects at once. They are very good at, having exposure to what works in one industry and applying it to another, to not cut corners, but to almost crowdsource insights from 30 clients and apply that to different ones, and I think they're two very, very different worlds. Yes, they're often talked about in the context of SEO. Yes, the end goal is often the same, but I think it's very, very naive to single them out as one. You hear these conversations all the time that agency SEOs are better than in-house SEOs. They're better at SEO. They have very different skills. And I think, you have to, everything is balanced, right? And I think, should some businesses have an in-house SEO team? Yes, others shouldn't, and I think there are so many different ways, and there is no catch-all. I think, people making sweeping statements on most SEO will be taken in-house in the next 2 years. There are some businesses that do not need SEO in-house. They should never have SEO in-house. There are some businesses that should have had SEO in-house 10 years ago. And there is a place in this world for all of us. And I think, the sooner that, it is not an us and them mentality, and I think junior agency SEOs, I think, are often wrongly conditioned to this mindset of you're better off in an agency. And my honest take is that there is room for us all. There is a need for us all. And it is all about a C-suite making the right decisions for their business.
Yeah, I mean, I've worked in both, so I mean, I'm balanced. I can see
which do you enjoy the most?
I mean, at the time, it was exciting, in the agency, and then a different time in my life, the brand decided to work. So I can see benefits and minuses on both. I get the arguments. Yeah,
and I think that sweet spot is when an in-house team know how and where to use an agency. And I think that's for most businesses, if we were to try and generalize this, in an ideal world, we all bring different skills to the table and we are all able to work together towards the same goal.
Yeah.
In reality, it doesn't always happen. In reality, I think there's often people wrongly assume that in-house teams are trying to get rid of agencies or working against them. The best relationships when everyone is working together towards the same goal, whether that's an agency understanding where they fit in the bigger picture, whether that's an in-house team, understanding where they are better off with agency support for that might be rapid execution. Don't forget that an agency will often have more resources to be able to rapidly jump on something than an in-house team. But you come to the topics of, and it's not one we'll go into today, but you get into things like risk aversion. And I think a lot of, as a junior agency SEO, you are not conditioned to think about the risks that certain things could pose to a business, which is where in-house teams are. They're almost the guardrails, aren't they? And I look at some of the digital PR ideas that I pitched 9 years ago, and I look back now and I go, I was so incredibly naive. Why would, you walk out of a meeting and you go, we had a great idea there. Why on earth did they not sign it off? Knowing what I know now, I go, why on earth did I pitch that idea? And I think as when you're separated from that in-house team, you don't have that same sort of exposure to the dangers of risk. It's reputation.
Yeah.
We can bring so many things back to reputation, and reputation as one of the new fundamentals of SEO is where it is where I am entering 2025.
That's all good. That's it's usual. Great insights there, and I agree totally. The last thing, so I know your time is, you've given us loads of time, and I appreciate it.
You are always very, very welcome, mate.
Cheers. So one last thing, obviously, new player in the market, SearchGPT. It's looks like perhaps taking more market share than Bing.
Yeah.
Which maybe some say isn't that hard, but it has. Maybe it looks that way. So yeah, how do you think it's going to affect the market? If anything, is it going to affect Google? I mean, obviously, Google got other things like social media and stuff also coming into play. But
yeah. I mean, I think look, my honest take here is that ChatGPT, and if we just step back a few months to when it was just ChatGPT, we are still not in mainstream adoption of ChatGPT as a tool. Yes, in our digital bubble, we have all been using ChatGPT for various tasks to help us, to spark ideas. I'm not getting into the ethics of should it be creating content, should it not? Again, that is a whole conversation in itself. But in our digital bubble, we have all been using, to some extent, ChatGPT or other LLMs for 1 to 2 years. You go and stop the everyday random person on the street, and I would argue that most of them still would look at you blank if you talk to them about ChatGPT. They might have heard about it, but they're not using it. So you apply that to SearchGPT, and I mean, I don't know the percentages, but yes, there is a growing percentage of searches happening through SearchGPT. Are we anywhere near mainstream adoption of it? No. But, and this is the big but, is now the time for someone or something to take market share from Google? Yes. We only have to look at social media and the rapid growth of Blue Sky in the past week. They are at, I mean, I know at the weekend I signed up on Friday or Saturday last week, and I think they were adding 1 million new users a day. That is probably 3 or 4 million users a day now. That is becoming, and they are all coming from Twitter. That is people's frustration with how Twitter has gone. We are at a point where we are starting to hear your everyday person complaining about Google results in some instances. There have been examples that I have seen of maybe news articles, maybe, people who aren't in SEO complaining about the quality of Google's results, whether it's overloaded with ads, whether it's the results it returns. So if we step away from SearchGPT for a moment and reframe that to, is there a chance that over the coming years, Google can lose market share? 100%. I believe now is the time, and if we go right back to the start and start talking about things like Google being broken up, Chrome being potentially sold off, Quality of the search results. There have been some, and I'm talking as an SEO, but there have been some bad decisions made at Google, probably based on greed. And I think there has probably never been a better time for some of that market share to be taken away. Time will tell whether we will see mainstream adoption of anything but Google, or whether Google just, and I think, how many times have you ever heard somebody say, "Oh, just go and Bing that for me"? I've never heard it. How many times have you heard someone say, "Just go and Google that"? Every day, 20, 50, 100 times a day. Nobody says, "Just go and Bing that." So whether that can be challenged in a major way, and I'm not talking about, can somebody take a small market share from Google? 100%. It's happening. I don't yet know when, or I don't want to say if, because if says never, but I don't know yet when anyone will be able to have a mainstream shift. Now, we've seen it when Apple or Android have changed their default browser. It doesn't have much of a market share. It doesn't change Google. A mobile phone company can go and set their default search engine as Bing, and we all go and change it to Google. We all still use Google. What it will take, I don't know. I would like to hope that, and if you step out of the last couple of years, and if you look at what Larry Page and Sergey Brin built with Google, it is one of the greatest inventions of our time. It is fantastic. Do Google maybe need to get back to doing what they do and being a search engine? And YouTube is a search engine. I'm not talking about YouTube, but does Google need to refocus its efforts on doing what it does very well and maintaining that market share? Possibly. And I think, we are at, I think we are at genuine risk of losing one of the greatest inventions of our time. And I think, the way Google was able to rapidly take market share from Yahoo, from Ask Jeeves, from Alta Vista, all these other original search engines, which AOL, none of them really dominated in the way Google did. It was phenomenal. Google was this simple search engine that let you search the web. I remember when I was probably still in primary school when Google first came prominent. And I remember my dad showing me that, Yahoo was full of news, full of stocks and shares. The search box was part of Yahoo. Google was just this search box that you went onto, typed in what you wanted, and you found what you needed. It is one of the greatest inventions certainly of my lifetime. And does it need to change much beyond what it has always been? And I know we're not going back to 10 blue links. I don't believe it needs to. And, I think where we have had, there is a meet in the middle of, what Google's vision and mission statement is something like to make the world's information easily accessible. At what point does Google need to remember that?
Yeah, I think a lot of people say. I think the thing with greed, I think, totally agree with that. I think people are, who are switching to SearchGPT, the reason they're doing that is because there's less noise, there's less ads, there's less personalized ads, there's less like taking your data and stuff. People are liking that factor, and also, sorry, I'll finish on is the greed side. The only thing stopping people, I think, to take market share from Google is the greed aspect. If they start getting greedy like Google have, then it's going to just slam in the face and they won't do it.
But
So
playing devil's advocate there, does your everyday consumer think the way people who work in digital think? Does your everyday consumer, yes, there's the search result quality, and that's maybe a side question, but in terms of, and maybe, I mean, my personal take is that AI overviews has taken it a little bit too far. But in terms of, you talk about things like merchant listings on e-commerce SERPs, from a user perspective, I believe they're a positive thing. Just because SEOs don't like that they're, and it's not, merchant listings is a bad one because that's still organic free listings. But just because marketers don't like the way their traffic attribution has shifted doesn't mean to say it's wrong for users. And I think, I think the biggest threat to SEOs and businesses is the way the SERP layout changes over the next 1 to 2 years. And yes, there is greed. Yes, there are certain things that Google has rolled out purely for greed, purely to get more advertising revenue. But I think it's naive to say that all of those, even those things that take away organic traffic, making a sweeping statement to say they are all bad for the user, I think is very, very naive. And I think, we have to look at your everyday searcher. Do they even notice? I don't know.
I mean, it's hard to tell, isn't it? I mean, obviously, I do think they, the normal, and obviously, who knows, the usual kind of user doesn't really like things changing too much, and Google is changing things quite frequently, and also adverts, But then again, a lot don't know how to determine ads for normal. So, but I do think younger generations are a bit more skilled in that way of knowing things. So, yeah.
100% they are. But I think we talk about change, and I respectfully challenge you there, saying people don't like change. People don't like change when it doesn't positively enhance them.
Yeah.
When they have a positive experience as a result of change, they're on board.
Yeah, I think when they saw things like AI overviews, like you're saying, they were bringing out some. I think people then, trust starts to, it starts to erode, and that's the problem.
Let's not even get onto the topic of AI overviews. But to sort of finish where we were a few minutes ago, the day people start go and search GPT that instead of go and Google that is the day that Google's in trouble.
Yeah, no, I think we can agree with it, and I think we are a long way off that. Google are still very dominant, and it's probably going to remain. My device battery is telling me I need to wrap this up.
Nice,
and
nice.
I'm taking up a lot of your time, and I really, really appreciate it. So thanks again, James. And
all right, we will speak soon.
Yeah, take care.
Cheers, John. Take care, mate.